What got you interested in this particular story?
I just thought when I read that footnote, I thought, that would be amazing to film.
You will never get the full reality of something when there's a camera present.
And we're rolling. So
Yeah.
thanks for joining me here in
Thank
this
you.
little studio. And you guys came all the way from Norway.
Yeah.
Wow. How long is that flight?
Well, for me it took. I didn't go directly from Norway, so
Okay.
I was in Amsterdam before this. But
Okay.
it took me 14 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. And for you, it was even longer.
Well, door to door, I think it was 37 hours.
37.
Yeah, but the flight was cancelled and we were rebooked and then through Dubai and so a lot of,
Okay. So we should introduce you guys. So Christopher, or you go by CF, is that right?
Yes, yeah.
And you're a filmmaker. You're here in Tokyo
Yeah.
for this event. So please just tell me really quick, about yourself.
Right, well, I'm from Norway, half English as well. I'm a director of documentary, mainly films, and I also work in television in Norway. Well, that's how I make my living because I'm a independent or unaffiliated filmmaker. We have completed one short film called The Discoverers, which is sort of my cinematic debut as a director.
Okay.
And we've got concert film coming out soon, and also a feature doc that we're working on. And in addition to that, I make music with the composer for our films,
For the
Stian
films.
Granmo. He and I make music, so that's almost like Spotify.
Okay.
Things like that.
So I want to get back into that, especially the film, in a second. Let's get Peter, though.
Yeah. Peter from Norway, born and raised in Oslo. I'm a photographer and a cinematographer, and I do some editing as well.
Okay.
Or used to do a lot of more editing in TV as well, especially edit our movie. Our
A very
short
good
movie.
editor.
Yeah.
You're the editor for the movie?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And then working television mainly to make a living, and then do still photography on the side as more of my passion.
Okay.
And then do documentary project as my
Okay.
really big passion.
Usually I ask at the end, but since you mentioned photography, what's the best way for people to follow you on social media?
Well, we've got an account on Instagram. That's our main sort of platform, I guess. We're called, we sort of have a name for our duo kind of company, and it's Absolutely Fact.
Okay.
But it's not, so this is a bit of a long walk,
Okay.
but it's not absolutely spelt in the right way. So if you don't mind me mentioning,
No,
Peder is quite dyslexic.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I thought if we call ourselves, well, it's Absolutely Fact because it's documentary.
Yeah.
But if we, we were sort of trying to invent a logo.
Okay.
And Peder was writing it, but then he spelled absolutely how he thinks it's spelled because
Okay.
he's dyslexic. And it was completely wrong. Which then made it more funny because it's not actually factual. So it's APSELUTELY, and then fact with FAKT.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well, that's cool. That's how good brand names come up, right? Like the brand for this podcast is Weekly Fascination.
Yeah.
And thanks for watching and subscribing. But I was talking to a lawyer friend of mine, and I said, I'm doing a podcast. I have all these interesting guests and fascinating guests, and I try to do it every week, but I don't have a name. He said, oh, well, Weekly Fascination.
Exactly.
And he was eating a sandwich, and he's like, yeah, Weekly Fascination. I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
And the name stuck for everything.
You should keep asking him for advice.
I should, yeah. I should, but not legal advice. So, Peter, though, how can people, you talk about photography, you brought some really cool cameras we're going to talk about later, but how can people follow you on social media?
Well, actually right now, I don't have much on social media, but I have my own Instagram account, and it's pretty much empty.
Okay.
So I'm thinking about starting to put things out there again.
Okay.
But it's been a while since I
Okay.
published something on Instagram.
Got it. Well,
But I like, you can follow our common Instagram account,
Okay.
and you will find my name in there. I think
Okay.
my tag.
And we've started to include some of his still photography there,
Mm.
so little by little, because he, like most photographers, has a problem judging which photos are the best, or knowing which one to go for. So I'm going to sort of be his manager in a sense, and go through his archives and try and pick some.
It's a big archive.
okay. How many terabytes of photographs do you have? Be honest.
Oh, a lot. I think it's about like, let me think, about like 5 tera.
Okay. That's modest.
No, yeah, that's like for the last couple of years, and then I have like archive storage, and then I have a lot of I shoot a lot on film,
Okay.
like the old way, and then so I have a lot of negatives that isn't scanned yet. So
Okay.
yeah, if I scan all of those and add the archive, it's probably a more like 15 tera or something like that.
Okay.
Oh yeah, but data is expensive.
Yep.
So, and as an editor for our film as well, I have all the archive for the footage, all the raw materials, and that is like, yeah, for this documentary, it's like 24 terabytes or something. So
Okay.
yeah,
And the documentary is how long?
25 minutes.
So like 1 terabyte per minute.
Almost, but it's a lot of cutaways,
Yeah,
a lot
of
of
course.
like, yeah.
Yeah, but what I was blown away by was that we talked about this before we started the podcast. Was that I don't know if people can access the documentary yet, but in the future, right?
It is online. There's a service, a streaming sort of platform called Whoosh.
Okay.
WHUSH.
Okay.
That is sort of a collaboration between various indie film festivals.
Okay.
So it's there. It's called the Discoverers, and it's also actually in Eastern Europe. It's available on Megogo, which is sort of the Netflix of Eastern Europe in a sense. It's the biggest streaming platform in
Okay.
it's based out of Ukraine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I was blown away by was the panning shots, or where you're going down the street and the people are looking at the camera,
Yeah.
and it's just what I really love about documentaries is showing just the daily life of people, just raw, unfiltered, somebody washing dishes or making dinner or having lunch or bicycling down the street.
Yeah.
It's just, that's beautiful. And then also like a time capsule, because if you watch this in 20 years, you'll see, oh, this is how people lived in 2024.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And back to the storage and the terabyte things. Most of the shots, or most of the storage we have, or media we have, is like the passing by pictures, because it takes such a long time to get the right ones, and you have to keep rolling, and you shoot it in slow motion, so it makes like it fills up the card really fast. It goes like like 1 minute is more like how much is it, times 6 or something?
Yeah, times 6.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
That's right. Yeah. Slow motion.
yeah, so 6 minutes for 1 minute.
Because we always film, and when we do slow motion, we film it in as many frames as the camera will allow, right?
Yeah.
So there's like 250 frames for this camera, and then
Whoa.
maybe one day we can have even more.
Well, it takes a long time to go through though.
Yeah. Like frame by frame, right? Well,
Yeah.
have you seen these videos where they take like somebody shooting a balloon and it's like 10,000 frames a second?
Yeah.
Insane. But
It's called with a phantom camera.
yes, it's maybe not necessary for a documentary, but
No. I did it
still
one
pretty
time.
cool.
I used it one time.
Okay.
Made a TV show called Lego Masters.
Okay.
It's about people building Lego basically.
oh, I love it.
And then the contestant built like a Lego house or like something, and we blew it up.
Oh,
And we shot it in slow motion.
with the Phantom.
Yeah.
Oh,
In
wow.
10,000 frames or something. And it was like, wow. Yeah, it was amazing.
That's really cool. But I bet it's, so you probably didn't buy the camera, you had to rent it?
Yeah. You have to rent it, and then you also have to rent and operate it for it. And then there's a special software. Everything costs a lot of money when you do it. So you do like, you rent the camera and a guy for one day, and then a post-production solution to send it to the other post-production that does the show.
Wow. So tell me about your process when you start a film. What starts first? Is it like the idea? Is it the location? Is it something like a message you want to give? Because your Discover the Discoverers had a good message, right?
Well, I think for me, I wanted to make films, but it took me a long time to sort of land on a subject. And from studying other filmmakers and what they were doing, I sort of made rules for myself. So one thing that is my first rule is if it's a documentary film, there should be a reason it's a film, not an article or a choreographed dance or a song. You know, why should this story be told in film? So it has to be visual.
Okay.
It should have a certain interesting audio quality to it, like there's some sort of possibility there. So that's number one. So something that's strikingly visual.
Okay.
That's rule number one. And then I used to be maybe more preoccupied with telling the story of a protagonist, like one protagonist. And in that case, I would want to have a main character who is very good at, or very eloquent at formulating whatever it is that their perspective is.
Okay.
So somebody who's good at getting us to see through their eyes, you know, the way they speak or their opinions have to be striking. Something has to be, interesting there. So for me, and it's difficult to find subjects that have all these.
Yeah.
Right. And but once you land upon a subject, then it goes very quickly. Like, oh, okay, this is okay. This we'd love to film this because it's very visual, and then you find a main character that fits the description, and you're like, oh, you're ready to go.
Okay.
So I think with the short film, it started out with there's only a very short sequence ended up in the film, but there are these masquerades that are dancing. Like you see two masquerades.
Yeah.
And it all started with those. So it's,
that was visual, of course. Yeah.
So when we saw those, it's like, oh, what can we do with those? We have a feature doc that we're working on now where they will figure very heavily in the film.
Yeah.
And then we start from there.
Okay. Well, some editors talk about killing your babies, right?
Yeah.
You have like, because I film in Tokyo, and Tokyo is such a photogenic city, and Japan is a photogenic country, right? The shrines and the temples, the people and daily life and cities, and sometimes you spend all this time getting the perfect shot, then you think, this doesn't move the story along.
No, exactly. Yeah.
And then you delete it, and then the video works. Like, oh, you have to mourn, like you have to cry. Okay.
Yeah, and that's a hard process. Killing your darlings. It's like. Takes time to get once you get a distance from it. I think it's easier. Like putting away it for a little while, and then like coming back to it. It's like, oh no, that's not working at all.
Yeah.
And then, you had some. You're sitting editing the feature length now, and that's a hard process because it's a lot longer movie and a lot more scenes. And there's some scenes there that are really like hard to like because it's visually striking and it's really nice, but it doesn't do anything for the story. And
well, we cheated in a way because what ended up in the short film, the Discoverers, is actually things that were supposed to be in the feature-length film.
Okay.
And then we're like, well, we have too much material. Can we sort of separate some material and make it? Create a separate story. So that's what we did. So instead of killing that darling, we sort of
made it into another darling.
There you go.
Put it in a foster home or something.
Foster home, footage foster home. So we talked a little bit about the the Discoverers. What is the like 1 line or 2 line description of this film we're talking about?
Well, it'd be a West African family shares the story of how their ancestor discovered or met the first Europeans in West Africa. we sort of get to see how they celebrate that time in history, even to this day.
Okay. Is there like a reenactment, or
No.
no? Okay.
There's
It's sort of okay.
Sort
So
of,
it's
yeah.
a bit complicated. So in generally in families in West Africa, or at least in Benin where we were, and when I say family, I mean the extended family.
Okay.
Right? So the extended family will have a head, a leader of the family, and that person then gets the name, often, not always, but generally gets the name of a founding father or an ancestor.
Okay.
And in anthropology, they call it a positional successor. So this person kind of embodies that historical figure, and also inherits all the social relationships. It has, it becomes the head of the family, has the same responsibilities, and it's not a reincarnation of that ancestor, but it's almost. And it becomes almost like a reenactment of historical people, in a sense. So we filmed the enthronement of a new head of the family,
Yes.
who then sort of becomes the founding father.
Okay.
And so his father, who's in the film, he told us, well, I'm his father, but now he's my father. It changes the social relationship.
Position.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because in so many different places, like it's in the Bible, it's in Japanese history. When you move to a new position, you get a new name sometimes, right? Yeah.
And here in Japan, you can inherit like a family name from somebody else.
Yes. Yeah. So there is I think we talked about this the other day.
Yeah,
where,
we did.
Yeah, with Ricky, and she was on the podcast before.
Yeah.
But she's really fascinating. She knows so much about Japanese culture.
Yeah.
She's a great resource. But sometimes the family, a corporation, right? If they don't have a son who's a successor, they can adopt somebody, and that person will change their last name.
Yeah.
Now, in some cases where they only have daughters, if there's a son-in-law who is a good businessman or successor, he will take the family name.
Oh.
Now, this isn't every family. This is pretty rare, but it happens. Yeah.
Huh.
And then he will carry on the family tradition and name. But he doesn't get the he gets the responsibilities, but not the relationships. Maybe business relationships, where he becomes the CEO or shacho, or the chair of the board, the kaicho. But they inherit those relationships. But then the father would never say, "Oh, he's my father." He would say, "He's my son or my stepson." Still, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But here in Benin, not here, but in Benin, you inherit the position and everything, so you become like the head of the family.
Wow.
And they generally have then the sort of a title, mito, which is our father. Means our father. Yeah.
That's fascinating. So, what got you interested in this particular story? Because it's something I would never think. I want to go to West Africa and make a documentary and seek out this family and be there at the enthronement. That's a special time, right? First of all, that it doesn't happen every year. Just maybe every
once in a generation.
Once in a generation, right? So they were there, and also that they let you film this. That's pretty special too, right?
So we were there because we wanted to shoot this documentary, we're now in post-production with, the feature-length one. We were there to film these masquerades. They're called egungun. Okay. And I'd seen some pictures online by I think it's an English journalist called Dan Kitwood. Okay. Very beautiful photographs. I didn't know what I was looking at, but these masquerades, and everything is covered. You don't see any hands or eyes or anything. And the materials are like sequins or animal hides or plastic or anything, really. Yeah. Very creative and colorful. And I thought, I want to see that in person. So I found out, this is in Benin. I had to get away, so I traveled there as a tourist, basically. Okay. Got to see it, and then it turns out that these are basically ancestors. So the people consider these masquerades, each one is a certain historical figure in the family.
Okay.
And then because of the history in Benin, in the south of Benin, it was also connected to the slave trade, because the people who worship these masquerades, they came from current or present day in Nigeria, and so they brought that tradition to that place, which means that a lot of the ancestors they venerate were slaves.
Okay.
You know, so there was a sort of a story there, and we thought, this is a great idea for a documentary because it's visual. It's got a very substantive, theme. So we went there to film that. And then I was doing research, and I'd read a little footnote about this family whose ancestor met the first Portuguese in the area, and that they had gifts that they'd been given by the Portuguese.
Oh, yes.
All these plates and cutlery and oil lamps and all that sort of stuff in the 1500s, and that they sort of used these objects in ceremonies. And I just thought, when I read that footnote, I thought, that would be amazing to film.
Yeah.
Like almost again like a reenactment, because the idea was, instead of reenacting things, we film like these masquerades dancing, or they're then sort of reenacting, but without us directing it. They're, and we inquired, like, when can we film ceremonies with these objects, with these plates and everything? And they said, we don't just do that whenever, we do that when we enthrone a new head of the family. And I thought, well, we'll come back in 15 years' time, who knows, right? But they said, but, as it happens, the previous head of the family has been, he passed away a few years ago, and we're in the process right now of choosing a new head of the family. And we lucked out. He was going to be enthroned while we were in town.
Wow.
Chance.
That's a special opportunity,
Yeah, so I spoke with him, we arranged a meeting, and I asked him, if we could get permission to document the ceremony, the enthronement. And his attitude was, well, my ancestor was the first person who discovered Europeans, and because I was the first European to approach him, that meant that we were sent by the ancestors. So he said, I can't say no. Is basically what he said. So again, luck, and that's one of the things I really love about the film, is a lot of it is not really, it wasn't under our control. It's sort of, that's what I like about documentary. You're not.
You can go out and try to do something, but you will get something else.
Yeah.
And once you like embrace that, you will get some great stuff.
Yeah. So as an amateur, YouTuber and filmmaker myself, my job sometimes, I think, is to help people forget that there's a camera.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. But it's weird because you will never get the full reality of something when there's a camera present. There's always going to be this feeling of the camera that, but you can try, and once people get used to it, it's much easier.
But we've sort of nurtured this awareness around us that the camera's there, and we try to use it in the film. So there's a lot of people staring into the lens, and for me that's a key moment, because it was for several reasons. One is there's a transparency to it. All right, we're all agree now that we all know there's a camera, and the viewer knows that they know, and it's all. But it's also this. I think if we filmed in Norway, for instance, or as you often do for television shows, people have this unwritten rule that if there's a camera, don't look into the lens, don't stare into it. People will just pretend like nothing. Whereas when we were filming in Benin, a lot of people were a bit defiant. It was like, wow, you got the camera, but I'm not going to be determined by that.
Okay.
If I want, I'm going to look into your lens. Okay. And I like that. It was a sort of resistance to what we were doing that I have a lot of respect for. So
that's cool.
I like that.
That's cool. Yeah, I've when I work with people who are not actors, the first thing they do is look at the camera. Right at the camera.
But that's the thing. I remember last time I was in Japan, actually. I was stopped on the street by a television.
Oh, yeah.
And I was getting interviewed, and he was like, this weird thing, but it's nice. And then as a photographer and as a person who usually is behind the camera, I was thinking all the time, don't look into the camera, don't look into the camera. And the first thing I did was look straight into the camera. And then I was like, no, don't look into the camera, look into the camera again. So it's,
I've spoken to them too. There's a TV crew that goes around here. We're in Shinjuku today, and one time they interviewed me for just a short minute, and they said, what are you doing in Japan, right? Yeah. And I said, I'm going to go watch Godzilla with my friends. They said, oh, okay. But then I started speaking Japanese to them, and they looked at each other like, oh, he's not a tourist. He's not interesting anymore.
Exactly.
He's wasting our time.
So they said, thank you. They gave me a sticker.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, have a nice day. Yep. But sometimes they'll just find a random foreigner at the airport.
Yeah.
And then pay for their trip.
Wow.
Yeah, like they go to an onsen or like sushi or something. Yeah. Or I don't know if they're paying for the trip, but sometimes they just follow them.
Yeah.
So
on their trip. Like,
yeah. Is this your first time in a Japanese onsen? And then they get in the hot water like, and they say, oh, foreigners love to do this. Which is really hard to say because you're coming from Norway, coming from the States, and some people love anime, some people love manga, some people want to see the Ghibli, museum or something. Other people want to go have a tea ceremony. So it's hard to say, like, what do foreigners love about Japan? So, but since we're here, what did you enjoy about being in Japan?
Well, for me, it's like, as a photographer, it's visually striking. There's a lot of things to see, a lot of detail there's so many things all the time, and try to pick out some details of some places, some lights, and things like that. It's the main thing for me. But like 8 years ago, when it was last time I was here, it was more like the touristy stuff and try to do all the bucket list. Go to the temples, go and do that and do that, and it was nice to have done that. But also the culture is like, and the history. There's so many things to do here, and for me, it's like after this trip as well, it's like, oh, I got to go back and do this and this and this. And so there's a lot of things, and I think it's a country that you will always get more things to do.
Yes. So one example is the history that the 47 Samurai.
Yeah.
There's a Keanu Reeves movie, I believe, right, where they talk about the 47 Samurai. But the place where those guys are buried, or their headstone, is around the corner from my home.
Oh.
And I lived there many years, didn't even know it. I passed this temple all the time.
Huh.
And one day I decided, well, what's here? And I looked into it. The 47 Samurai, their graves are here.
Yeah, exactly.
And I looked into the story, like, why are there 47 samurai graves here? And so I made a video about that. But it's really interesting. You walk past something, you see a little memorial or a stone with something carved into it. And that's where some event in history took place, because the country's so old, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny now because sometimes I'll be at a place filming and somebody say, well, why are you taking a picture of the rock? I said, well, did you know what happened here? Like 300 years ago. Yeah. And then I tell the Japanese person, Japanese history, they're like, what, really? And then they take a picture. Yeah. So, Christopher, what did you enjoy about Japan? And like Peter, you're going to come back? And
I'd love to come back. What always strikes me when I'm traveling is, you generally have an idea or have heard things about people or the culture where you're going, the destination. And with Japan, of course, never been here before, but I've heard so much about it's stereotypes and cliches, basically. And for me, what's interesting is to try to sort of scratch away and see, can I see any chinks in it? Can I see something that I love being proved wrong in my prejudices, in a sense. And also, I believe, like, people are people. So even though cultures are very different, I'm always searching for, now I can see through the crack. I can see the similarities between people anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Because we tend to generalize and simplify, and it's impossible to sort of fathom it all. But that's sort of my the thing I've been doing here is just observing, trying to see whether I can. I was almost a bit nervous about the politeness or about the etiquette. Like there's some I didn't want to be disrespectful, and I had all these ideas maybe that were a bit exaggerated about. And then I observe the people around me who are not tourists, Japanese. And sometimes I say, they're not bowing as much as I thought they would, or like small things like that, And then I start from there, and then I try to study it. But we were only here for a short while, but things like that. And of course, I have to say, I love how everything works very smoothly.
Yeah,
I love the food,
especially the food.
But I'm also a bit sort of like, it works very smoothly, but what effect does that have psychologically? Like I find that interesting, because there's also something to be said for things not working properly, like cultures where there's a lot of rule breaking. It's also fascinating. There's some sort of free-spirited quality to it. And well, what about a culture where, relatively speaking, people don't break rules so much, or they're very, there's a lot to be said for it. It's very functional. At what cost? I'm sort of trying to observe a little bit, But
that's deep. That's because when you look at it in my neighborhood, I see, parents with their children, and I think, well, everywhere. I've been to other countries, I see parents with their children. I see everywhere people love their children.
Yeah.
Right. And here I see one thing I see that I don't see in other places like Los Angeles. Like I'll see an 80-year-old grandmother walking to the store to buy vegetables. You don't see that in LA.
No.
But you'll see her, and sometimes it takes them quite a while to get down the street. But they go to the store, buy the vegetables. And I always make sure to give them lots of room. Because someday I'm going to get old. And I need somebody to be patient with me, Or, you see somebody who, like, they're taking a long time making a decision or getting the change out of their purse or something. I see more old people out in Japan.
Yeah.
It's safe.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually had when you said it, thought about it when on my way over here. There was this old guy with a cane standing at a cross section waiting for the green man. And then he started to walk out in the road before it was green, because he timed it. So he knew that he's going to use a lot of time getting over there. And then and it took him a while. And I was like, okay, I moved on, and I got to the next cross section, and he catched up with me because I was waiting for the red for so long. So he could he continued. He timed it perfectly. So he kept walking all the way.
Wave.
Yeah, the green wave. Yeah,
intelligent.
Yeah, really intelligent. So guy who had done it before,
Yeah. That's what I love about. We're just getting the ambient noise. That's okay. There's a siren going by, so that's okay. But that's just life in Tokyo. I rented an apartment one time, big mistake, which was across from a hospital.
Oh.
And I didn't think about it. But 3:00 in the morning when the ambulance goes by, you think about it. And there was also a bus stop under my window, which is really convenient.
Yeah.
Actually, that bus would take me to my office. It's really convenient. Door to door, 10 minutes, right?
It would shake the...
However, they would stop there and the engine would run and the diesel would come up into my room.
Wow.
And then the people would sit there, and every bus stop now, Japan basically in public is a no smoking area, right?
Yeah.
They'll fine somebody 2,000 yen, which is not a lot of money, but it's embarrassing to get stopped, right? So if you're walking down the street smoking a cigarette in Tokyo, the police will stop you and say you pay a 2,000 yen fine. But people would sit at the bus stop and smoke,
Oh,
waiting for the bus to come.
Wow.
And if the window's open,
Yeah,
it's
you get all
right,
the smoke and
yeah. So
both diesel fume and smoke. Wow.
and the sirens, and then late at night there was an office across the street,
Mm.
and this is another reason I chose the building. There was a Lawson convenience store on the first floor. What I didn't realize is people come there on their way home from the bar to get a walker.
Yeah.
Right? They call it, to get like one more beer on their way home, and they would stand outside. And when people, speaking of, overall rules, Japanese are so polite. The train is so quiet. Nobody's on the phone, right?
Exactly.
They're all on the phone, but they're not talking on the phone. But at night, when people get drunk, it's their chance to be loud. So I would have people stand outside the convenience store having their last beer for the night at 2:00 in the morning, just laughing and yelling. So yeah, people are really polite and really considerate, but at 2:00 in the morning, that just kind of goes.
Like in every country.
Yes, every country. But so the next place I picked now where I'm at is residential,
Mm.
and it's super quiet at night. So when you hear something, it's like, oh, I hear the neighbors. That's weird.
Yeah.
So, but it's really funny because I am in central Tokyo, but my neighborhood is quiet at night.
That's the thing about Tokyo. It interests me actually. You can like walk for like maybe 5 minutes out of every like big cross section or like place where there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And you walk for like 5 minutes in one direction. It's suddenly quiet.
Yes, totally quiet.
Totally quiet.
Yep, it's great. And here, even what I didn't realize, the neighborhood where I live is there's all these shops on the first floor. Like there's a 7-Eleven, there's a coffee shop, there's a kimono store. And then above that, there's homes.
Ah, yeah.
And one day I looked up, it's a 10-story building. Like there's probably 50 families living in there. But at night, all the shops closed, totally quiet.
Mm.
And the neighborhood where I live, they have a rule that they can have bars, but they can't have like all night clubs because they want to keep it residential. So it's a good thing about neighborhoods in Tokyo.
Yeah.
But if you're young and you want to have excitement, you want to stay in Shibuya, Shinjuku, you can find that too. It's really a city that never sleeps.
It is
like Las Vegas or something. Yeah.
That's the weird thing. I find it weird though. It's cities that never sleeps, but it's still the subway or the train stop running.
Yes.
So I find that fascinating because either you have to stay out or you gotta go home early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, they even post on the entrance.
Yeah.
The last train is like 11:39.
Yeah.
And if you're there at 11:40, that train's gone.
Yeah.
Yep. And then you can either walk home or get a taxi, pay like $100 to get home. Or there's Loop. You've seen those, the green scooter?
Yeah.
Rentals, yeah. I think tourists can use those, actually. You just have to put in your ID and then a credit card.
Oh.
Yeah. And I've used it to get home sometimes.
But it's pretty few of them.
Yeah.
Compared to, for instance, Oslo, where we live. There's all over the place, there's scooters. And they had to ban a lot of the scooters because there were too many.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And people are not good with parking them. So there was this, a lot of, especially blind people had really problems stumbling across scooters.
Oh, it's just on the sidewalk.
Yeah. And old people hate them.
Sure.
So there's actually a lot of videos of old people like shoving them over and doing like mean stuff to them.
Well, these only go up till 20 kilometers per hour.
Yeah.
And then you're limited. So if you're like, there's a taxi parked and you know it's going to turn out into the street, you just have to wait because you're only going 20 and they can go 50 like immediately. So yeah, but they're fun. There's also rental bicycles, the red.
Yeah.
There's like the light green and the red bicycles, and I find them very useful. But what happens is, I was in a neighborhood way outside of Tokyo. It's still Tokyo, but outside of like Shibuya, Shinjuku. And I found out that people would rent them to get home, but they take the train to work.
Yeah.
And they rent a bicycle to get home. So these residential areas, they would have this cluster of like 50 bicycles. So they'd have to bring a truck to come pick them up and then bring them back to the city. So I don't know if they're saving a lot of energy that way, but
We had the same actually in Oslo because everybody in the morning you have like city bikes.
Okay.
And you can rent them by, or not rent them, but you can just like if you're have a what is it called? Subscription. Yeah.
okay, yeah, subscription.
Yeah. So if you have that, you can like pick one up, and everybody uses this to go downhill to work, and then they take the tram or something back home because they're lazy.
I get it.
And then so it's like a cluster of bikes in the center, and then they have to drive it all the way back.
So we should have more Japanese people in Oslo.
Yeah, probably.
So you can ride them home.
Yeah.
So, but smooth transition into cameras. You have 2 Leica cameras.
Yeah.
And they are beautiful. And
Thank you.
It's like the pinnacle of cameras for any cameraman or any photographer.
For a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's what can you say? It's not cheap, unfortunately. But it's a camera that never fails. I think it's especially the old ones, like the analogs one. It's mechanical, you know, and it's it works every time. It's precision, and the weird thing, like you have Japan that is really famous for making cameras, but outside Japan, there's nothing except for Leica in Germany and Hasselblad, which is Swedish, I think. Yeah, I can't remember. But those 2 are the only brands that it's non-Japanese because making cameras is like you have to be really precise. Yeah, and so the only other that made it work was Leica actually, and then. But the funny thing, you can find a lot of Leicas in Japan as well.
Yes,
and for cheap buck actually compared to Europe.
Okay, I thought they were expensive. That's why I didn't get one.
Yeah, there is, but it's actually better priced here than a lot of places in Europe. And if you buy one here, you will guarantee. Still, if you buy one second hand, it's guaranteed that it will work.
Yes,
it's they're really, really careful about not selling you crap.
Yeah, junk. Yeah. Well, for a long time there was no secondhand market in Japan. Maybe for cameras and lenses. But like clothing and things like that, that you just have to throw it away. Wow. Now they have thrift shops.
Yeah,
it's kind of a recent phenomenon. But like I was saying the other night, that sometimes there'll be a young man or woman who spends a lot of money on a camera as a hobby, and then they start taking pictures. Then they get married, and then their wife says, "You never use that. Get rid of that." And he's maybe used it a couple times.
Exactly.
So it's basically brand new.
Yeah.
But they can't sell it as a new camera. Exactly. So the same thing with equipment.
Yeah.
You can get used Shure microphones.
For cheap.
Yeah, really cheap. Yep. So I got these off of a site called Medicati. Yep.
Yeah.
Got it from Medicati. Yep. So and I think these are probably Amazon, the stands, But the recorder too is off of Medicati.
Oh.
Yeah. So you see somebody who and the description, you can pretty much trust the description. Is I got this, I used it once, it's been in a box in the closet for a year, and now I don't use it anymore. So you're basically getting a brand new.
You can trust it.
Yeah, you can trust it. Yeah.
Once you buy things off eBay or in the US, you never quite trust the description. Is always like, you have to be careful. But here in Japan, you can really trust people with equipment.
Yeah, and Medicati has a good system where. I know a woman who makes videos about how to use it for foreigners in English. Oh. But and I don't think they can ship outside of Japan, but so there's a big market for arbitrage where you can order something, have it delivered to your home in Japan, and then the person sends you money, and then you send it to Norway or Sweden or Germany. Yeah. So, but it doesn't pay that much.
No.
So it's not really, you're not going to make money, not going to make a living, but the description is really, trustworthy. And then there's a feedback system. So if this seller sells junk, they're going to get a bad rating.
Yeah.
And the first thing a Japanese person checks is the feedback. Of course, they read the product description, okay, this is a Leica camera. It's 2020, and it's been used this many times. But they also check the feedback. Has this seller sold junk before? Do they have a bad rating?
Yeah.
And those people, like, it's over for them. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, back to the cameras. I have two.
Okay.
So one is digital, and one is film.
Okay.
And for me, I love shooting film, but film in Norway or in the rest of Europe and the US is starting to get really expensive. But here in Japan, it's still really cheap.
Wow.
So you can buy a lot of film here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy, after this, I'm gonna go straight to the shop and buy a bulk of film. But and bring it back home. But and they do really nice developing here as well.
Yes.
So I developed 3 rolls the other day, and really, really good developed.
Yeah.
So now maybe I have to move here, or every time I have to develop, I'm gonna come here.
Yeah.
But
or find somebody, like, send it.
yeah. But the X-rays and everything will ruin the film.
That's true.
So you have to be careful. You have to be really careful.
Oh, is that why you develop it before you go home?
Yeah, it helps, or it makes it a lot easier. But I'm going to bring a lot of fresh film home as well. And so when I go through security, you have to ask for a hand check and things like that.
Or get a Faraday bag.
Yeah. I actually had a lead bag, but it weighs a lot. So you don't want to bring it, and you can't bring that many rolls in it.
That's true.
And some of the new X-ray machines, they won't protect you against that either. So they have like these CT scanners, and that will kill everything.
Oh no!
Like, so a friend of mine sent one roll through, and the security persons were like, "Do you have film in your backpack?" And he was like, "Yeah." It's like, I'm sorry to say, that's broken now.
It's all destroyed.
Yeah. So the old X-ray machines usually just give you like this gray vibe on the film, but the new ones, they just kill
destroyed.
Yeah.
Oh no. Okay.
So be careful.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I actually bought this new one just because of the film prices.
Yeah.
So to try to keep the economy of film in my life a bit like safe.
So what do you find with having digital pictures? So this is what I found, and maybe you find something similar or maybe opposite, but since cards are cheap here, you can get like a 128 gigabyte card, or even like a tough card.
Yeah, right? Like a terabyte card. Yeah.
And they even make the ones that are like good for travel, that are really strong. Yeah. Really good ones. I got one for the Sony, and it can handle like 10-bit video and 4K and all that. But since the cards are so cheap, I find myself taking a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
Like a lot. And then it shoots RAW and JPEG, or RAW and another format. And so each photo you take, you get 2 files.
Yeah. So then you have to go through them.
Yep.
And if you take like 10,000 pictures for like, say you go to some place and it's a nice place. And then you have to go through them afterwards. And especially if like take 10 pictures of the same thing, it's not going to change that much. Yep. And then it's like, okay, which one is the best? And then, so that's actually the reason why because when I was an apprentice as a photographer, we started shooting film. Okay. Did weddings on film and things like that, and then we switched to digital because digital was getting a lot better. Yeah. And especially during weddings, it's nice to have that. Yep. Used to have a Canon 1D, which took like 8 pictures a second.
Oh, that's great, yeah.
Yeah, but that was like the old one. I think the new ones now can take like 24 or 50 or 50 pictures a second, It's like how but for me, when I like back home, I have a Sony A7. Okay. Same as this camera. Yeah.
A7 IV,
yeah. So, but when I use that, I'm like in the back, going back to the old mood of like, And then I go through the pictures like, oh man, it's too many. It's too many.
Yeah.
So the reason why I picked up film again for like how many years ago? I think like 10 years ago or something, is that it slows down the process. And you have to be more like picky on what you shoot. And
more
then,
deliberate.
Yeah. And then you think a lot more before you take a picture.
See, I find with Photoshop and Lightroom, it's so easy to get lazy.
Yeah.
When I'm taking a picture and I have this problem where I'll push kind of too hard and then the camera moves like diagonally a little bit. I think, oh, with Photoshop, I can just straighten that out. Or Lightroom. If the light's not good, with Lightroom, I can like turn down the shadows or, you know, get some more like, you know, more light.
Yeah. And the other thing with film versus digital is like, I like the softness, and because everything now, when it's becoming digital, it's like, especially for the last like 10 years, lenses are getting like sharper and sharper and sharper and sharper. And for me, I like the picture to be kind of like, in my still photography at least, to be kind of like smooth and not, and maybe like a little more artsy, if you know what I mean. And sharpness is not, or like perfection is not always the best thing to go for. And film, you will always get some imperfection. Yeah. And maybe get some light leaks or something ain't right, like perfect. And I think I like that. I like that. Yes. I like that you don't know exactly what you're gonna get.
Yeah, it's the Japanese have a word for it. The beauty of imperfection.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Is try to think of the Japanese word now, but I find some of my favorite pictures. I was in Seoul, and there's a beautiful temple across from this. I was at a convention center, and in Gangnam actually, the Gangnam style, right?
Yeah.
I was in the neighborhood. I'm at a convention, and I walk across the street, and there's a beautiful temple, and I'm trying to get a picture of just the temple. And it's not really busy. And suddenly this couple walks right in front of the camera when I snap the picture. That's the best picture.
Exactly.
Is that like real life, but also the art of the temple. And then, so now I kind of embrace the imperfection.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the thing. If you play by the rules, you will get photos that are perfect in every way, but it's not exciting.
It's boring.
It's boring.
Perfect is boring sometimes, right? Like real life is messy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I'm getting used to, because I always joke, when you go out in public to film, the public also shows up.
Yeah.
Right. So they're becoming a character now, right?
Exactly.
Whether they want to or not. So what I'm really careful about is like little children.
Yeah.
Like they walk in front of the camera, I don't use that.
No, exactly.
Or I'll crop it so that they're not in the frame. But if it's like an adult or something and they walk in front of the camera, those are some of my favorite pictures.
Yeah.
Is that
take a lot of pictures of people, and around the world, people react differently.
Sure.
Some get mad.
Yeah.
But here in Japan, my experience is that if I walk across the street, or I walk down the street and I see a person that I think is interesting coming towards me, and like I'm getting ready, I try to figure out what's the focus distance and what's the exposure, and then at the last second I go, and in their face basically, and then I smile.
Okay.
And then the reaction is, here in Japan, is mostly a smile back and like, oh yeah, great. It's for a lot of people, it's a compliment, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have had people walk up into the frame.
Yeah.
And then wave or something. The other night, this is hilarious. I was doing, I wanted to do the Christmas lights. So there's a place called Azabadai Hills. It's probably the tallest building in Japan now. And they have the Christmas market. And it's very German based, right? Oh. So it looks more like a German market, but it's Japan. So, they're doing their best, but it's really good. And there was a group of kids there. And this one guy, he's maybe university student, he's singing, "I wish you a Merry Christmas." And I look over, I said, "Excuse me, it's we wish you a Merry Christmas." And he starts laughing, right? I didn't realize they had walked in front of my camera before. Well, I get to the next location, and guess who shows up?
Oh,
The same group of 3 kids, right? And they walk up and they're like, "Hey, we saw you at Asvada Hills." And so then I got them on camera. I got a selfie of the 3 of us, and that's going to be a storyline in the movie where it's so funny because you see millions of people every day, but to see the same person
over and over again.
yeah, it's interesting.
Weird,
Yeah. So that I love stuff like that happening, and I try to plan because I do YouTube videos mostly and podcasts, but I try to plan the video. But sometimes something happens that's better than what I planned.
Exactly.
And to me, that's the magic of like having the camera going when something happens.
But that's life as well, you know.
That's true.
You can't plan everything, and the things that you didn't plan for might be the best parts.
Yeah. Very true. Or unless you drop the camera, that's it.
Yeah, that is just expensive.
I think if you contrive everything, if you sort of plan for everything and you're in control, then what do we even really learn? You know, it's just going to be, so that's how you want the world to be or whatever. But you know, when reality intrudes, that's sort of when you get a dialogue between the creator and the world, really, or reality. So you get I think that's far more interesting to allow other things to come in to play. You know, I find it very. I mean, we don't make fiction, and I have a lot of respect for fiction, but that's one of the reasons I wouldn't want to do it. You know, I used to. My education in film was actually to be a screenwriter, and I wanted to do screenwriting for film. Then I realized, you know, after a while that I can't convince myself that this is just figments of my imagination. Why is that interesting? You know, like what's and even, you know, you have fiction filmmakers who have techniques where they invite the unexpected and what they don't control into the films, and it makes it more vibrant.
One of my favorite scenes is Dustin Hoffman in Midnight Cowboy, where he says, "Hey, I'm walking here," right? And that was not scripted.
It wasn't.
Yeah, not at all.
Oh.
Like the taxi was coming down the street and he's walking, they're making a film, and sometimes people film without a license in New York City. Like I know a lot of people who will do a guerrilla film, right?
Yeah.
And random things happen, and that, "Hey, I'm walking here," was like he was pissed off because the taxi was gonna come in too close. Yeah, he was like, "Hey, yeah."
So my father had this story. He was in New York, and he's walking along a pavement, and there's a police officer who kept asking people to cross to the other side of the street because there were some cameras that were filming something. And my father said, "Sure," and he crossed the street, and the police officer was so confused and surprised and delighted that somebody in New York would actually heed his request. And, you know, and shouted at my father, "New York would be a better place if everybody was like you, sir." Something like that. And then, apparently they were filming, like, I think it was Home Alone 2 or something like that. That was but that's something, that's New Yorkers, I suppose, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But New York is a fun place, though. It's very random.
Yeah.
Like life in New York is just random. I was on a bus in New York City one time, and there was some kind of traffic jam or accident or something, and the ambulance is coming. So we're on this bus in July, and we can't move.
And that's hot.
Yeah, and so this little girl in the front starts singing A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And when she's done, the whole bus is applauding her. and somebody said, "You have such a beautiful voice." And she said, "Oh yeah, it's just my voice." And it was so pure and so cute, and just and the whole bus, like, we're all laughing, and you know, you think New York City is this tough city, but no, you get a little child singing on the bus, and then the traffic moves, and we all get off the bus later, and we go about our day. Yeah. Those little moments that are just random. That I wish I had a film camera at the time, because it was just such a cute little thing, you know.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, there's a lot of. I think we like to complain about social media and Instagram, but I do like this thing about Reels, where you see, you know, some really good ones on Instagram, for instance, just capture a moment. And I've seen so many moments that I never would have experienced if social media weren't a thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and if everybody didn't walk around with phone, and like there's cinematic magic sometimes.
Oh, yeah,
Just 8 seconds of something that's wild or beautiful or
Totally right.
I mean, there's a lot of shit.
There's a lot of garbage.
Of course, of course. But there is. You don't have to wait long until there's something that's incredible. Like somebody, it could be somebody who escapes a forest fire by driving through,
Yes.
fire.
Yeah.
Or it could be. I mean, it's just so many different
Yeah.
random things. Animal life, or it's. I find it quite incredible. It's like. It's short films or short documentaries.
It is. It's short documentaries, actually, yeah, because it's not directed. One of my favorites is you get these trail cams.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody sets up a camera on a tree. There was one the other day. I forget if it was Twitter or Instagram, whatever, but there was a bear walking up on his hind legs.
Oh.
Like walking like a human. And and the other favorites is like where they put a camera on a tower and then a bird will come up and look at the camera. Those are so funny.
I like there was one some deer walking and behind it is some puma or something, some wild cat. They're just walking and they're just sort of walking together. And it's a trail cam, and it's somebody that had the caption like just going home after a hard day shoot for National Geographic. Just sort of.
I love it. Yeah.
What's life really about?
Yeah, really. Yeah, that is going to be a hard day, but I love nature documentaries too. Like BBC makes some of the best, and they're on Japanese TV with Japanese overdub.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get them bilingual, but
so David Attenborough has a Japanese
he does,
a counterpart.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the BBC documentaries are so well made.
Yeah.
And I hear that they were like some of the first to use balloons to do what would now be a drone shot.
Yeah.
But the balloon is quiet and it doesn't disturb the habitat. And it kind of floats along. Yeah.
It's interesting. There's a very good documentary by an American filmmaker called Theo Anthony. He made a film called All Light Everywhere. And it's very, very good. But it sort of looks at the history of photography and cinematography. But sort of, photography was invented around the same time as we had colonialism, but also anthropology and ethnography were invented. And he sort of looks at the confluence of all these things. And how, when we take a photo or, we say we shoot. And that it has a history in actually shooting with guns. And there's a correlation. And they were looking at the first time, that they tried aerial photography. And I seem to remember what they did was they had a pigeon and they strapped a sort of a camera.
Wow.
To the pigeon, yeah.
Long before film, but
Sure.
or moving images. But so it was still, but it's just incredible. I don't know how the pigeon was strong enough, so the first sort of aerial photography is this a camera strapped to a pigeon, like in the late 1800s or something like that, early 1900s.
They were really experimental back then. They were experimental.
There's a woman who shot in New York City. And they say she's the mother of the selfie.
Oh, who's this again? Yeah,
I
heard this before, but I forgot. Yeah.
There's pictures of her in New York City where she's standing in front of a mirror taking a picture of herself in the mirre. But she would also...
Vivian Maier?
I think that sounds right.
Yeah.
I have to look it up and put it in the show notes down here.
Yeah.
But her photographs are just so cool.
Yeah, if you're talking about Vivian Maier, she's really good, and she wasn't discovered before or after her death.
That's right.
Yeah. Nobody knew. She kept all her photos to herself.
Yep, that's
like a lot of photographers do.
Yes.
Like I don't like sharing, but but I have to share, or I want to share, but I don't like to share. But I think she had the same thought. Like she wanted to share, she wanted to show, but she didn't have the medium or...
It would have been also more difficult for women, I think.
I
think she could be taken seriously and all that. So there's a big, the gatekeepers would have maybe kept her out.
So this concept behind shooting, right, comes from shooting guns, right? Because you point and shoot.
Yeah, I
Is
mean,
that
I
right?
can't remember the exact sort of correlation there, but there's something, to do with that.
So
But there's
Like a
more
metaphor.
correlation there, actually. You can find, and you can probably find it, a lot of them here in Japan. You can find lenses and cameras that are made like guns. So you have like, you can put it in here and you have like a trigger and
whoa.
you have sorry. You held it like this.
Yeah.
And then you look through them, you find it like that.
Like sighting a sniper rifle or something.
Exactly.
Wow.
Don't do street photography that way.
No, don't. Well, and in the U.S., don't do that.
No.
Don't even try that. You'll get shot. Yeah. Yeah, but it is interesting because the people who do guerrilla documentaries or YouTube, they say scoot and shoot.
Yeah.
Or run and gun.
Yeah.
Right. So, oh wow, that's
We say stup og skyt in Norwegian, which is basically dive and shoot. Yeah.
dive and shoot.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that Theo Anthony film, All That Everywhere, also looks at, up until the present day where you have a body cam on police officers.
Yeah.
And looks into the technology behind it and the use of it. And it's a very, very interesting film. He's one of the most interesting documentary filmmakers, I think, working right now.
I got to get that info from you. Like, so later we'll do like an Instagram where I can ask you a bunch of stuff we talked about. Because what always comes up on a podcast is what I love about it is it's raw and it's random.
Yeah.
Right. Like I know we're going to talk about cameras. I know we're going to talk about discovering the discoverers, but the other stuff that comes in is always fascinating, like off the top of your head. So we got like another 15 minutes. So what's next?
Well, we've got 2 projects. So we've already completed a concert film. The artist is called Michael Gerard. He's famous for he's in a band, or he started a band, and is the only permanent member of a New York art rock band called Swans.
Okay.
From the early 80s and until present day. So we filmed him playing a solo show. And we've sort of made a concert film that I would describe as an hallucination of his concert in black and white.
Oh,
yeah.
So we sort of because we kind of are bored to document things neutrally or objectively, So we basically remix the music.
Okay.
So there's all sorts of effects on it. The visuals, are in black and white because that's not how we experience it live. And there's a lot of visual effects and stuff like that to sort of make you doubt whether you're actually watching something that is in that time and place. So I'm excited about that. It's like an hour long, a little under an hour long, and we're sort of working on getting that into festivals for next year. So that's in progress now. And also we're in post-production for the follow-up to The Discoverer of the Discoverers, which is the full-length documentary shot in Benin at the same time.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
You won an award for your film.
Thank you so much.
And it's the sister festival to the
Rain Dance
Festival.
in London, yeah.
In London, okay.
So that's one of the... well, I mean, for us, that's sort of one of the target festivals, for its independent film in Europe. So Rain Dance is very well regarded in Europe as a film festival. And the Japan Indies Film Festival, as you said, is the sister festival there. And so we came out here and we were very lucky and actually won an award for Best Short Documentary.
Okay.
So we're super happy about that because we arrived here as, a film has about a shelf life of 2 years on the festival circuit. After that, it's sort of a bit too old, you know. And we've had the Discoverers out now for about 2 years.
Okay.
So this was our final festival screening.
Last chance.
Yeah, and to receive an award was electrifying. The final, and it was also the Japan premiere. So super happy about that. It was our 10th award, so we feel like we've had a very successful run with that film. I remember when we finished it, the colorist for the film, Jens Wahlberg, he's very, very good. He said, you might win some prizes for this film, and we're not going to win any.
big movies. Like
Yeah.
so we like, no.
Yeah, and this is it's our first sort of cinematic release. I thought we're not going to win any awards, and then he said, "No, but I've worked on worse films that have won awards." Which is the way he put it. I love it.
Yeah.
So you got to put yourself out there, right? You got to apply to the festival, and
Yeah,
right? Or what do they say? You miss every shot you don't take.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I spoke to a friend of mine who's a more experienced filmmaker than I, and she gave me a piece of advice. She just said, if you are selected by 10% of the festivals you submit to, then it's a great success. So it's a numbers game.
Okay.
Yeah. So for all filmmakers, it's sort of the more festivals you submit your film to, the more screens you'll get. But I mean, 10% is not. It doesn't feel like if you get rejected 90% of the time, it might have a psychological effect. But one shouldn't think of it like that.
Yeah. It's the same in sales or dating or anything. Like, I mean, if you get that right girl or right guy, whatever, then if you get rejected 99 times and one yes, that you only need one yes.
Yeah.
Right. But I guess films, if you want to win, you won 10 awards.
Yeah.
So
Actually.
that means you've submitted to a lot of festivals, right?
Yeah, we did, and we were, I think, about 20%. We got in. That's good, and of course, we operate. The word indie film, I think, is a bit meaningless now because it used to mean something, but now I think the source of the funds for films more or less the same. It doesn't really mean anything. Indie just means it's not Marvel, or indie just means
it's not Disney.
Yeah, it's
Not
just
Disney.
it doesn't, or that it's not American, perhaps, or it doesn't really mean anything. And for us, it was very difficult to get past the gatekeepers. We just chose to do things our own way, and that's not always popular with people who are gatekeepers because they want you to go through them, and then you sort of, I wouldn't say you get punished, but you don't get rewarded. They won't help you later on down the road, right? I don't know. It's a sort of a learning curve, right?
Sure.
We just jump into it, and we get into certain festivals where they're open to people are, well, let's not call it independent, but let's call it unaffiliated, people who don't have a big production company or don't have a distributor or sales agent, because you need those. If you're going to get into the big festivals, you're going to need somebody who knows somebody, right?
Backing from like a major either investor or
A producer,
somebody or like
So we I use this as a sort of way to learn. I submitted the film to tiny festivals, to big festivals, to things in between, and and I would suggest that people just do that and find their niche, see who's receptive to what you do.
Yeah. It's all these artistic endeavors like making music or being a comedian or all this. It seems like there's no one career path, right? Like you said, you have to find your way.
Yeah.
Right. And then I think success is actually much more sweet when you get it, because if you want to be in finance, you go to university, you get the degree or get an MBA. You want to be a lawyer, you go to university, get the law degree, take the exam. But for filmmaker, it's like, what's the career path, right?
Yeah, figuring it out as you go, I think.
Yeah,
but it's also, I think, there's a difference between making a career for yourself. That's one thing, because you can work on spec, or you can be a freelancer and you can make a living by making something commissioned by other people, which you're not really in control of it, or it's not necessarily what you want to make, or maybe you don't care. You can do those things, but if you want to make things where you define what it is that you make, where you decide what the project is, what the theme is, all that sort of stuff, then there's no right or wrong way, I think. I mean, some people are more shrewd and clever about it.
Sure.
We're not very business minded, for instance. We're not very. And I think that's one of the things that makes things take a long time for us, because it's we don't do things the right way, and if it's not done the correct way, then it's sort of harder. But you get more freedom as well.
Yeah. Well, to me, that's what it's about, is the freedom. Like in my job, in working as a lawyer, I have to follow rules, right? My free time is my time. And when I make a video, it's going to be my idea.
Yeah.
And win or lose, like it can get 0 views, and I'm happy because I made something that came out of my mind, and I filmed it, I edited it, I put in the music, the coloring. I don't have a colorist, I don't have a sound engineer. Everything is from me. And if I'm proud of that, and I upload that, then I'm happy. But
the most important thing I think is like following your passion.
Yes.
And doing that.
Yes.
And that will make you happy.
Exactly. And I've had people tell me before, you have this great opportunity. You're in Tokyo. You should make videos about manga or anime. And I have no feelings about those. I'm really neutral. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
So if I make a video about anime, I know nothing. It's not going to be authentic.
No, exactly.
People are going to say, oh, you just made this to get views, right? Because it's popular. And so having that creative freedom, having that 100% control over what I do, to me is much more valuable than getting a lot of views. And then if, people watch my videos, then some of them have been very successful. Like, to me, success is 10,000 views.
Yeah.
Right. And to me, that's great. I'd like to have 100,000, like to have 1 million subscribers. That'd be great. But it's going to be on my terms.
I think also for us, we come at it from a slightly different angle because we already are freelancers in that industry. It's in the, so mainly in TV. And, I worked on things where I was the story producer for something that had 1 million viewers live. And then somebody says to me, when I'm making films, what if you do this or that to make it more commercially viable or whatever? But why would I want to chase that? Because that's what I do for a living, and it's not satisfying to me because I'm making content I don't really believe in, even though it reaches a lot of people.
Sure.
So maybe if I didn't have that job, I'd think differently about it. I'd maybe water it down. But because I come from that, it's more rewarding for me to make something on my own terms.
Yes.
And who knows, maybe nobody will watch it, or maybe somebody will. Hopefully a lot of people will, but you never know what's going to happen with time. Perhaps it'll grow, right? You can't just make it. And we're 2 years down the line now. I have no idea how many have watched it at the various festivals and whatnot, but or even online. I don't know how many, but we don't know now what 10 years from now, like, will be. It could. We're trying to build something. We're trying to make more content and see what's going to happen. But I don't think we can sort of judge it by, what happened this year.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Van Gogh, nobody knew who he was. He had paintings sitting outside when he died, and they're in the rain. And now they're selling for like $100 million.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen with my content.
but hopefully, in your lifetime as well,
and
not after you're dead.
Yeah, you never know. But what's, like I started out saying, is that getting a video of Tokyo today, my studio is Tokyo, right? Getting a video of Tokyo today, in 20 years when people watch that, they'll say, oh, look how much it's changed. And also, Japan, look how much it didn't change.
Yeah.
Right? Like seeing a mother play with her children like that, I don't think that's going to change.
No.
Elon Musk may have a robot in every home, but still, when the kid falls down, they're going to say, Mommy.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to say robot. Hopefully.
Hopefully not.
So the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah.
But I love the time capsule effect of, especially what you captured in Discovering the Discoverers, is this moment in time that only happened at this place at this time.
I think this is a bit of a passion for me because there's quite a bit of talk in our industry about sort of the ethics, or I would maybe call it the etiquette of filming and or documenting. Because people talk about, for instance, you mentioned this with the thing with children, filming children, whether should you use that or not?
Yeah.
And I think it's a very interesting discussion, but my stance on it myself is that if we sanitize what we document, if we choose too selectively and we choose away big portion of it, then nobody will know what it was like. So I have an example that I like. I saw a photograph, I believe it was from New York or possibly Chicago, 1920s or something, of these kids selling newspapers. And they're smoking cigarettes, and they're like 9 years old. And there are a group of them, they're kind of looking tough. And you see these photographs, and I'm like, if that had happened now, people are like, no, you can't take photos of them. But then nobody would know that there were child laborers smoking cigarettes. So we're doing ourselves a disservice by making a kind of a family album, sanitized Instagram account version of reality. I believe strongly that we should, if somebody's out in public, it's fair game. That doesn't mean you should be an asshole about it, and try to find the humanity in it, try to be respectful, but it doesn't mean that you should just scrap it because,
That's a good point. So for the archives, the daily life, and what I'm speaking mostly is about YouTube.
Yeah.
Because they say, like, did you get permission?
Exactly.
Are there children in the video? So that's why I'm super careful about that. But like photographs, when I'm photographing a temple or a shrine or something, there's going to be children in there, But I think you're right. The 9-year-olds working a job, first of all, selling newspapers and smoking cigarettes. If you see videos of children 50 years ago, they sound so much more intelligent. Yeah. And they would talk about things like, I need to pick up some flour to go to the bakery because we need to open at 5 a.m. And it's like a 10-year-old kid helping their father and maybe their grandfather or grandmother, Today they're like, my iPad, I need to charge the battery. So,
Yeah.
There's a very nice documentary from my hometown, which is called Trondheim in Norway. And there's a documentary that basically looks at all the archival footage of that town from the inception of cinematography. From the first time a cinematographer arrived in town to film there in like the late 1800s, early 1900s. And then they've sort of selected things for each decade, or and then just progresses throughout the film. And then you hear the voices of famous people from that town, like Liv Ullmann, the actress, she's from there. You hear their voices, you never see them. All you see is archive footage from various decades, and it's very beautiful for me to see those archives, to see those time capsules. And I think it's a very important job that we're doing in that sense, even though I'm not a believer in copyright, and I hope somebody just steals what we shoot and use it in some like 100 years from now, somebody's going to make something about what Benin was like at that time. Yeah, use our footage.
Okay.
You have my permission. Use it. Use all of it. It doesn't matter, but just that would be an honor if that was included in that kind of retrospective.
Sure. It is a sticky thing with online video. If you take a shot of, especially a big studio like Marvel or Disney or Pixar or something, if that's in your video, that can get taken down. But
copyright laws are insane.
Very strict. There's a lot of thinking about that. So the artist should get credit for the work, but also this is also this belongs to the world, right?
Yeah.
This sound or this voice or this picture.
Because you have recorded, for instance, our movie, we have recorded people. And if I should get money for my shots, or let's say you're going to use my footage, and you have to ask for copyright permissions, everything like that, and it's kind of, and then I say, yeah, you can buy it for this amount of money, and so on, so on, so on. But all the people in the movie haven't get paid.
It's true. Yeah.
So I think copyright law is important because artists should get like the at least credit for what they do. But I think it shouldn't be that strict that you can't use anybody else's work, because every great artist steals,
Oh yeah.
So like songs that are like
I think a beautiful example is actually the early hip-hop music.
Yeah.
Because they basically sampled all sorts of styles of music. They were so eclectic. They would be sampling Kraftwerk for like German techno. techno. They'd be sampling soul music. They just mix everything and create something new out of it. And once these copyright laws came in and made it prohibitively expensive to sample, it changed hip hop. So then suddenly everybody had to make their own. I mean, that was also, you could argue that created a dynamic change in the style and rejuvenated it. But I don't really see why those DJs would have to pay those other artists for those samples, because they're kind of putting it in a new context. And I think those laws are a bit too strict, really. Yeah.
So that's a good place to end it. I want to thank you. So once again, the production company, Perfect, Absolutely Fact.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and I'll put the Instagram in the description. I want to make sure and follow these guys because they're making great work. They're doing great work.
Thank you so
much. And I want to thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.